It wasn't the lawsuit that broke me. It was the silence right before it. The way she took her wine glass off my counter, like I'd stolen something. How do you grieve a friendship that's still breathing? Before I share what happened next, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I used to joke that Sunday wine nights were cheaper than therapy. Just me, my sectional couch, a pair of fleece socks, and Lana, my best friend since middle school, curled up beside me like a second shadow. For 23 years, we'd weathered everything. Braces, breakups, dorm rooms, weddings, funerals, layoffs. My house key had practically molded to her fingers. Her husband, Craig, didn't like that. At first, it was subtle. He'd call her during our Sunday nights, asking where she was, even though he knew. He'd ask what she was wearing, who else was there. Once she laughed and said, "It's just Nora." Like always. His reply was loud enough for me to hear across the room. "That woman is always in your ear." I had brushed it off. Craig was intense, a type A, fitness app-obsessed finance guy with perfect hair and opinions about everything. Lana said he'd mellow out. Said he was just stressed from work. Said he didn't like when things weren't on his calendar. I never pushed. I just poured her another glass of wine. I still remember the night she showed up with mascara streaks like war paint on her cheeks. She didn't knock, just walked in and collapsed against my hallway wall. "He called me a parasite," she whispered. Said I drain him emotionally. I didn't ask what led to it. I just hugged her and ordered Thai. That became our rhythm. Every Sunday, she'd come over, some new emotional bruise hiding behind neutral lipstick, and I'd let her vent. We'd talk about life, her job, my side hustle, TikTok hacks, dream vacations we couldn't afford. But more and more, the nights revolved around Craig. His sharpness. His moods. His sudden need for access to all her apps. He changed the Netflix password again, she said one week. Said if I want to watch, I need to ask. Another week, he tracked my location and said I was too close to that bar I used to go to. It was a gas station, Nora. Still, she stayed. And I didn't judge her for it. I'd seen how judgment feels. I just listened. My husband, Ryan, was kind about it. Supportive even. But after a year of wine-soaked confessions and emergency calls from Lana, he pulled me aside one morning while I was making coffee. "She's not just leaning on you," he said gently. "She's crashing into you." I sighed. "She doesn't have anyone else, Ree." He gave me a look, the kind that says he had more to say, but wouldn't say it. Not yet. There was one Sunday I still replay in my head. It was raining, heavy, southern thunderstorm type of rain, and she walked in soaked. No umbrella, no jacket. Just shaking hands, smeared eyeliner, and a half-laughed, half-choked sentence. He told me he regrets marrying me. I made her tea. She didn't drink it. Just stared into it like she was watching something drown. That night, I texted her afterward, just 2 words. "You okay?" She never replied. The next time I saw her, she was wearing lip gloss. A smile that looked surgically attached. And Craig was in the car, waiting outside my house. She only stayed for 10 minutes. No wine. No tears. Just small talk. Surface things. She didn't even sit down. And when she left, she took her wine glass, her usual glass, the blue one she always used, and tucked it into her purse. That's when I knew something had shifted. 3 weeks passed. No texts. No calls. Her Instagram was empty, which wasn't normal for her. I started to worry. Not just about her marriage, but about her. I left her 2 voicemails. Then one awkward, rambling email. I even reached out to her sister, who said, "Yeah, she's dealing with stuff. She'll reach out when she can." She didn't. Not until I got the subpoena. It came in a thick manila envelope, wedged between a HomeGoods flyer and a pizza coupon in my mailbox. At first, I thought it was junk. Some lawsuit about car warranties or data leaks. Then I saw my name, Nora Willoughby, and her name, Lana C. Hastings versus Craig M. Hastings, and I swear, the sidewalk dipped beneath my feet. Inside were screenshots. Pages and pages of them. Texts. From me. Lines highlighted. Words circled. Out of context messages like, You're not crazy. That's gaslighting. He's trying to isolate you. You deserve peace. Even if it means leaving. Each one timestamped. Each one labeled as evidence of outside influence. Her lawyer had filed me as a third-party enabler.
Me.
Her best friend. I didn't cry when I read the subpoena. I just stood there in my driveway, holding that manila envelope like it was some dead thing, and felt this strange, slow-crawling cold settle into my chest. My neighbor waved. I must have waved back. I don't remember. Later, Ryan found me still standing in the kitchen, the envelope open, its contents spread across the island like a crime scene. I hadn't even taken off my shoes. He read the first few pages and just said, "You've got to be kidding me." But it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a prank or a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. Her lawyer had framed my texts, the ones I sent in love, the ones I sent to protect her, as proof that I was interfering in the marriage. A consistent outside influence encouraging destabilizing behavior. They made me sound like a cult recruiter. At first, I thought maybe she didn't know. Maybe her lawyer had gone through her phone and submitted things without her realizing. I clung to that idea like it was oxygen. So, I texted her. "Lana, I need to talk to you. Please tell me this isn't what it looks like." No reply. I emailed. I called. I even DM'd her on Pinterest. Nothing. The silence screamed louder than any answer. 3 days later, I got a formal letter from her attorney. It said, in polite, cold legal language, that any direct communication with Lana would be considered a breach of confidentiality during an ongoing legal process. She had blocked me through her lawyer. The girl who once fell asleep on my shoulder during Bridget Jones' marathons had turned me into a liability. And the thing is, I didn't want to fight her. I didn't want to lawyer up and defend myself or go toe-to-toe in court over texts taken out of context.
I just wanted to know why.
Why would she let this happen? The day of the deposition, I didn't wear black. I wore navy. I didn't want to look like I was grieving, even though I was. Ryan came with me, but stayed in the lobby. I needed to walk into that conference room alone. Her lawyer was there. So was Craig's. And Lana. She sat across from me, hair sleek, blazer buttoned.
No smile. No acknowledgement.
Just eyes that slid past me like I was a stranger asking for change. She didn't even look angry. She looked tired, like someone going through airport security for the 10th time that week. The whole thing was clinical. They asked me to verify texts. Asked if I had ever advised her to leave Craig. I said I supported her emotional safety. I never told her to file for divorce. They brought up the wine nights. Asked if alcohol was involved when I gave advice. I said yes.
We had wine.
We were friends. Lana didn't say a word. Not even when I finally broke protocol and said her name. "Lana, please. Tell them the truth." She looked down at her lap. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. And in that moment something snapped. Not anger. Not betrayal. Just understanding. I started seeing the patterns, things I hadn't noticed in the haze of friendship. How every time someone in her life held up a mirror, she smashed it and blamed the shards. How she once ghosted a roommate for reminding her to pay rent. How she quit her old job and told everyone it was a toxic environment when really she had just shown up late one too many times. How she rebranded every life event as someone else's fault. And this time it was my turn. I was her new villain. After the deposition, I stopped trying to contact her. I didn't unfollow. I didn't block. I just went still. I focused on work. I stopped hosting Sunday nights. Ryan stopped asking me if I was okay. I think he knew the answer was too complicated. But I couldn't stop thinking about the glass. The blue one. The one she slipped into her purse before that last visit. Like she was collecting evidence. Or souvenirs. Weeks passed. Then months. Spring turned to summer. I saw her once in a grocery store parking lot. She was loading bags into her car alone.
No Craig.
No wedding ring. She looked thinner. Like life had scraped her down to bone. I stood there behind the wheel of my car, heart pounding, debating whether to get out and say something. But I didn't. Because for the first time, I realized I didn't trust her anymore. Not even with my silence. And then the email came. Not from her. From Craig's attorney. Apparently, Lana had filed an amended complaint and withdrawn several parts of her previous statement, including the references to me. The subpoena was formally voided.
No explanation. No apology.
Just erased. Like I was a chalk outline hosed off the sidewalk. But here's the thing. I didn't feel relieved. I felt used.
Discarded.
Rewritten. Because even if my name was cleared on paper, the relationship didn't exist anymore. And she had made that choice. That fall, I finally cleaned out my guest room. It still had her throw blanket on the bed, her half-used shampoo in the shower caddy, her backup charger in the drawer. I boxed it all, taped it shut, labeled it with one word, Lana. Then I put it in the garage. Not the trash. Not yet. Because even now, some small, foolish part of me still thinks, what if she knocks again? I didn't plan revenge. I didn't have a list or a strategy or some grand moment in a courtroom where I got to say, I told you so. That's not real life. What I did instead was quieter. It started when I stopped erasing myself. I had pulled back from everyone after the subpoena. Friendship suddenly felt like a liability. Like you could give someone years of loyalty, time, trust, and all they needed was one screenshot to ruin you. But the real shift happened one day when I was cleaning my phone, deleting old photos, trying to make space for a video editing app one needed for a project. And I found it. A video. From one of our last real Sunday nights together. Lana had recorded herself. Just 23 seconds. She was giggling and tipsy, holding up a glass and saying, "This woman keeps me sane. I'd be dead or divorced without her. Nora, you're the only one who gets it." Then she leaned in, kissed my cheek, and said, "If Craig ever saw this, he'd kill me." I watched it 3 times. Then I emailed it to myself and saved a copy in my cloud drive. Not as blackmail. Not as insurance. Just as a reminder that I wasn't crazy. That I had been there. About a month later, I heard through a mutual friend, one of the few left, that Lana was living in a small apartment across town. She was working part-time at a boutique and doing Reiki certifications. She had started a wellness Instagram account. The same friend sent me a post. It was one of those calming beige templates with cursive quotes.
It said,
"Your nervous system will always tell the truth about who is safe. Trust it." And underneath, Lana had written, "Learned this the hard way. Grateful for the reset. Cutting toxic cords. Healing in private." Over 300 likes. Dozens of "so proud of you" comments. And I sat there, reading it, feeling this strange mix of grief and pity. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was embarrassed for her. One night, I was at Trader Joe's, the same one we used to go to on Sundays, back when grocery shopping was our post-wine ritual. And I saw her. Not in person. On the store's community board. A flyer. Her Reiki practice. Photos of her with quartz crystals and closed eyes. A soft smile. Her new name, just Lana C. And the tagline, "Helping women heal from emotional betrayal." I almost laughed out loud. The audacity of it. But I didn't take the flyer down. I didn't rip it up. I just stared at it. Because somehow it made sense. Of course she'd turn the chaos into content. Of course she'd recast herself as the victim, the healer, the wise woman. That had always been her skill. She didn't need to be truthful.
She just needed to sound evolved.
But I wasn't interested in exposing her. I didn't need to post receipts or tell my side publicly. I just made a quiet decision, not to carry her anymore. Not even in memory. When my birthday came that year, Ryan surprised me with a small dinner. Just 5 close friends, good wine, simple food. There was laughter. Real laughter. No drama.
No sidewise glances.
At one point, my friend Meredith leaned in and said, "I like this version of you. Lighter. Clearer." And I realized she was right. I was no longer bracing for the next crisis call. I wasn't filtering my joy through someone else's trauma. I had space again. That winter, I finally opened the box in the garage. The one labeled Lana. I took out the blanket and donated it. The charger, I kept. I needed a spare for the office. And the glass, the blue one, I washed it carefully, dried it, and placed it back in the cabinet. Not for her.
For me.
Because that glass was mine. Not a symbol of betrayal, but of who I had been and who I was becoming. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was something in between. A soft boundary. A quiet line in the sand. And I didn't need her to cross it, because the truth was this. She had cried on my couch every Sunday. I had held her secrets like fragile things. And she had thrown me to the wolves when it served her. But I didn't become bitter. I became free. I used to believe closure came from conversation. From sitting across from someone, hearing the why, offering your side, and parting with some mutual understanding, even if it hurt. But what no one tells you is that sometimes closure is a decision. A quiet, private choice to stop waiting for an apology that won't come. And in Lana's case, that's exactly what I had to do. Life went on.
I found a rhythm again.
My days filled with actual peace, not just the absence of noise, but the presence of calm. I got serious about my content creation. Ryan and I traveled more. I said yes to more invitations, more hikes, more new people. I no longer flinched when my phone buzzed. I stopped rehearsing fake conversations in the shower. Stopped wondering if she'd show up at my door one day, with tears in her eyes and that old, apologetic smile. But grief is strange. It doesn't just disappear. Sometimes, it lingers in odd places, in the smell of a candle we both liked, in a song that played during one of our late-night drives, in a street we once walked down laughing over nothing. And I let those memories happen. I didn't fight them, because the memories were mine. She couldn't take those too. Then, something happened I wasn't expecting. I got invited to a local women's networking panel. I was surprised to see my name on the flyer. Apparently, someone had recommended me after seeing one of my small business reels on Instagram. I almost said no, but something in me said go. The event was modest. Maybe 40 women. A mix of creatives, entrepreneurs, wellness coaches, Etsy shop owners. One of the breakout panels was called Boundaries, Betrayal, and the Business of Starting Over. Ironic, right?
I didn't plan to speak.
Just listen. But halfway through, someone asked a question about what to do when a close friend betrays you, not just emotionally, but publicly. And before I knew it, I had raised my hand. I didn't name her. I didn't spill details.
I just told the story in outline.
Of friendship turned weapon, of trust rebranded as interference, of learning that some people don't want help. They want someone to blame. And I watched women in the room nod. One had been blamed for ruining her sister's marriage after she told the truth about cheating. Another had loaned a friend $10,000, only to be ghosted when repayment time came. Another had hosted her best friend's baby shower, only to be left off the baptism invite. Different details, same pain. Same emotional pattern. After the session, a woman came up to me and said, "You told my story, but with more grace than I ever could." And I realized maybe that was the soft revenge. Not the bitterness. Not the exposure. But the quiet way my story, our story, helped someone else protect their heart a little better. Later that night, as I was driving home, I stopped at a red light near a cafe Lana and I used to frequent. And I saw her. Sitting inside. Alone. She looked the same, or maybe smaller somehow. Her shoulders curled forward, her face half-lit by her phone screen. I could have gone in.
I could have said something.
I could have smiled or nodded or acknowledged our 23 years of intertwined history. But I didn't. Because I realized something she never had. Closure isn't confrontation. It's peace. And I had it. I drove away. And with every street I turned onto, I felt lighter. Like I'd finally stepped out of the waiting room of a friendship that had long since flatlined. She sued me using my own kindness. But what she didn't realize is that when you weaponize someone's love, it eventually turns into armor. Not for her, but for me. And that armor? It doesn't seek revenge. It simply stops bleeding.